Good morning to you. Mark Sutton of HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Monday, September the 5th, 2016. Here is the latest on Hermine. The forecast track shifted back to the west again, but not enough so to really bring any significant impacts to New Jersey, where we had quite a bit of worry as this moved off the Carolina coast. It looked like it might come back much closer, meandering around and then heading out, and thus all the quote-unquote excitement for the coast of New Jersey. Mentions of Sandy were coming up, etc. I don't see this being much more than a beach erosion problem, which in and of itself is problematic. The high surf in the area, the dangerous rip currents, all of that needs to be taken into consideration, but a far cry from what this was looking like just 2 or 3 days ago. As it stands, parts of eastern Long Island and New England here under tropical storm warnings as Hermine comes back to the northwest and then takes off finally to the north and east, brushing past and hopefully just southeast of Nova Scotia, maybe bringing them some much needed rainfall. We'll have to wait and see. The satellite animation of Hermine this morning, this is an infrared uncolorized or unenhanced version. It just shows the varying degrees of cloud temperatures by the brightness instead of colorized, and you can see the center of circulation located in here somewhere, and some convection or thunderstorm activity trying to flare up on the north and west side. Cloud cover now spilling out over the mid-Atlantic states and into the northeast. The only rainfall is really up here in New England. I'll show you that in just a moment. The waves are coming up. This is from the buoy southeast of Nantucket at buoy number 44008. And you can see some of these wave heights here, 20 feet, pretty significant increase here in the last few hours. So those waves will make their way onshore and bring those dangerous surf conditions that I was talking about anywhere from New England down here through the mid-Atlantic states and even the North Carolina Outer Banks still, as this system just sits here for a couple of more days, really disrupting the overall ocean state. And that's going to be the big story when all is said and done. The forecast no longer calling for this to become a hurricane again, and it's going to remain in sort of this extratropical, maybe even subtropical state. And that's just meteorological terminology to describe the structure, the thermal profile, and other things like that. To you and me and the general public as a whole, it's a storm over the ocean that's generating appreciable impacts for people. Let me get some water because it's been a long week and my throat's getting ready to try to give out on me. All right, so don't worry about the structure of it or what it's called. It's not as bad as was looking like a few days ago, but still going to bring, the potential for tropical storm conditions up here, especially along the Cape and the islands. But other than that, not the event that it was looking like just a few days ago. Now, looking at the radar, I mentioned the rainfall. And here's that rain shield now just getting into the southeast parts of Massachusetts and out on the islands. And that'll continue with brisk northeast winds, possibly near tropical storm force, but really not that big of a deal overall. What's happening? Why is it going to finally come back to the west more? You remember the European model was forecasting this, just recently to just go ahead and head on out. Well, it hasn't done so well. It's wrong again. And it's not so much bad modeling, etc. This is a complex pattern with this upper level low rotating in here, and then you've got the tropical system out over the ocean interacting with that. And what's going to happen is these two are going to just kind of pinwheel around each other. All right, so this will swing to the southeast, and that'll start to swing Hermine back to the northwest. And then when they get their act together, quite literally, basically lining up in the atmosphere out here over the waters just south of New England, then the whole mess can get finally pushed out to sea, excuse me, in one sort of sweeping gesture. It's just going to take a while. Now, luckily, this turn back to the northwest didn't happen while Hermine was down here, pinwheeling back towards New Jersey and then heading out. That would have been the bigger disaster that a lot of us were fearing for this system, and it's just not going to come to pass, luckily, for the folks along the Jersey shore. There's other action to look at in the tropics, including Tropical Storm Newton in the eastern Pacific. This will make landfall here along the southern Baja later tomorrow night. And then that remnant moisture moving up across the Gulf of California and into the southwest, where heavy rainfall is certainly possible. Flash flooding, heavy rain over the desert. You got to keep a watch for that kind of thing. Maybe Tucson, possibly as far north as Phoenix, but basically just an increase in moisture and more showers and thunderstorms. As usual, I suggest consulting your local National Weather Service office in that area for a detailed discussion on what to expect. Here's an infrared colorized satellite, very deep convection associated with the tropical storm Newton. And what is that, the 14th named storm? 16, 14, whatever it is. I think it's 14. They've gone pretty far down the list out there. Really started in July. Remember, there was nothing. And all of a sudden, it's just been one after the other with only a few lulls here and there. But yeah, the southern Baja here will take the brunt of this. And that's a lot of moisture. This is a fairly large envelope of energy, and it'll move its way up again into the southwest U.S. and across northern Mexico. I do want to show you a wide shot of the Atlantic Basin here before I sign off. Kind of give you an idea of what else we'll be looking at. There's a couple of areas of interest in the Atlantic Basin, but nothing that looks too threatening at the moment. Zoom in a little bit here. This is Invest Area 92L, the wave energy kind of getting spread out. It's not as concentrated or focused. We have another large sort of disjointed tropical wave sitting out here, and really nothing showing up in the models too strong right now over the next maybe 5 to 10 days. 10 days might be pushing it. I'm very confident about the next 5 days that nothing of significance will develop. But we really start to have to watch, basically this region here in the coming weeks as we move through September, sort of the second season, as pressures will lower here and they rise over North America with fall. High pressure areas coming out of Canada, and you create more convergence here in the tropics because of that down here in the Caribbean and the southwest Atlantic region. And then you intermix these tropical waves that'll still be coming, and you have yourself a setup for a busy second half of the season. Normally it peaks on September the 10th, and statistically speaking, activity starts to go down after that. But it's still a pretty sharp peak where you would expect to see something perhaps maybe every week or so, something developing. So we'll keep an eye on that. Nothing imminent right now. We've done pretty well so far this season with no substantial, widespread, damaging impacts. Certainly Hermine in Florida was impactful, but we know all the time, generally speaking, it could be a lot worse, right? So there you go. Hey, I'm still in New Jersey, going to be packing up my live camera that I have out in Brigantine in a few hours. I'm going to wait for the morning high tide to come and go. Really no big deal down there. Wanted to set up the equipment that I brought with me in anticipation of a higher impact event to, test things and be ready for the next time something comes up this way. If it's not hurricane season, it might be during the nor'easter season this winter. You never know, especially with all that warm water in the western Atlantic. It's not going to just go away instantly once we get to December. It takes a while, and that's a lot of energy available for potential potent winter storms. So I figured I would get at least some work done while I was up here instead of just turning around and driving back home. What's the good in that? Have a great rest of your Monday, Labor Day, and I'll be heading home this evening, be home late tonight in North Carolina. Then I'll be back with you the rest of the week discussing what's happening from my office. All right, I am Mark Sept for HurricaneTrack.com. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again as the week moves on.